What up, everybody? Welcome to Coffee Hour. My name is Paul Abernathy. Thanks for joining me today on a episode of Coffee Hour where we're going to be talking about hazardous location applications. Very, very high level. We're not going to get very deep into the weeds on it, but we're going to talk about it at a very high level. And so thank you all again for joining me here in the morning. I know there's things you can do in your morning. Also, by the way, I do know that the Fast Tracks tube and the Fast Track System website is down right now because we're doing an update due to what happened yesterday. So since I was going to go live, I figured this is the perfect time for them to work on trying to get the other issues that we needed resolved. So they are doing that, but it does mean that you will not be able to watch it on Fast Track's tube. Okay, so you'll have to watch it on one of these other platforms. Is what it is. I tell you, I got inundated with calls yesterday and emails from people. My course is down. I'm gonna relax. It's the internet. Sometimes we have to do updates. We can't do them in the middle of the night. So again, it just happens. Relax. If you miss one day of studying and you think that's going to keep you from passing an exam, wow, then you sorely mistaken. Okay, so again, we're in the middle of doing some updates and security patches and things like that. So that's why you may be down on the website, that type of thing. Okay, so anyway, we'll get all that stuff. We'll get resolved and taken care of. Worry about that. So anyway, thanks for joining me. As always, I love to live vicariously. We were out yesterday. We did not have a live yesterday, as you saw. I have no mechanism to be able to let people know when we're not going to be live. And believe it or not, I got an email from somebody that says you have the audacity to say that your show's live and then you put a recording on. Like, dude, go watch something else. Do you think that I care about that type of email or whatnot? I really don't. I do this because I enjoy doing it. And if I decide I want to stop, I'll stop. So at the end of the day, I appreciate all of you that do come and join us every morning. But I have like the lowest tolerance. Anybody will tell you I have the lowest tolerance for bullshit. So I ban people, block people, won't communicate with people. I am not one of those guys that are very forgiving. I am like an elephant. I always remember and that type of thing. So it just is what it is, and I'm not changing my ways. So if I offend somebody or offend you or offend somebody out there that's watching, hey, get over it. And, you don't have to watch my stuff. I can never be any more blunt than that when I talk to people, right? I'm here to help, but I'm not here to deal with anybody's whining and moaning and groaning. I'm just not. Okay, so anyway, appreciate you all joining me. All right, so let's kind of do some shout outs real quick, and then we will get into today's lesson and talk a little bit about hazardous location applications. But for those that wonder, I am again very aware that our website is down, or that you're getting something that says a host error. Okay, it is something that we're working on currently right now, so we're very aware of it. Let's see here. Good morning, Paul. Thanks for joining me. Glad to have you here as always. Jonathan, glad to have you here. Welcome. Let's see here. Seattle, or I guess that's how I'm pronouncing it. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you here. What's up, Brandon? Good morning. Down in Houston. Good morning. Glad to have you here. Felix, glad to have you here, Felix. Good morning. Marlon, glad to have you here, Marlon. Good morning. Shout out to everybody. Good morning from everybody. David, our CMECP, but down in Southwest Florida. Thanks for joining us. What's up, Rob? Glad to have you here. Wow, Rob, I don't know how you're watching over on the tube. It shows that you're watching on the tube. I don't, not sure how that, I don't know how that's even possible since I know it's down. There you go. Good morning, Tom. Glad to have you here. All right, he's finished a fuel farm project in at BWI Airport. Awesome, that's what I'm talking about. Right, Brandon. Yeah. Yep. Over now, Brandon uses the mobile. You can have a chat feature there, and he asks questions over there. You can too. But yep, glad I could get that answered for you, Dave. Brandon. Let's see. Yep, David did not have a live show yesterday. It was recorded. We had server issues, so I was letting them work on that and get it done. But we were back up in less than an hour. So it's just one of those things that I don't wait for convenient times. It's like if we need to make some kind of change or do something to the server or fix something, I tell them to do it. And somebody says, well, I might be studying. I'm like, well, tough titty. It is what it is. What about all that time you didn't study? Okay, so get over it. What's up, Adam? All is well, my friend. Just trying to get things in place and recover from a server issue. What's up, Leroy? Glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us this morning. What we got here? Nepo. Thanks for joining us, Nepo. Glad to have you here. What's up, Charlie? Charlie's in the house. Thanks for having us here, Charlie. We enjoy being here and glad that you're here as well. Frank's in the house. What's up? Yesterday's episode, by the way, was a replay, but it was single family dwelling replay. It was about 2 hours long, but it was always great information again to get in and really learn all those little steps that you need to have for multifamily dwellings, for single family dwellings. Again, because you never know on an exam when you're going to have any piece of that. So that's a good one to watch. So figured that was the best one to replay for you. What's up, Melting Toast? Glad to have you here. Let's see. Michael says, more calculation study, please. Well, you have to submit it. How do I know what you want me to study? I'm not going to turn this into coffee hour calculations, so you have to be very specific. But did you go watch the single family? And have we watched my other calculations videos that we have? They are out there. Let's see here. All right, and so let's see. I think, hold on, let me double check for all those to show you how fast our folks work. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let me see real quick. Let's see. All right, hold on for a second. There you go. So I can tell you that they've already fixed the servers. They're already working fine. So, you can actually, that was pretty quick for them. Let's see here. Let me make sure everything's loading real quick. So those that ask, yep, everything's working fine. So that one was less than 30 minutes. Okay. But we had some updates that we make. So yeah, you just got to be patient with us. We're always trying to improve the system. And that is the problem when you host your own stuff and you have your own folks that do the server stuff. Anything that can happen can cause a problem. So, anyway, back up. GJ Adam says, I just wanted to play with my excavator. I did not do anything on the excavator. I haven't done it in a week now. It's been too rainy and muddy, and I know that's what they're made for, but I don't like cleaning it off afterwards, so I'm lazy. Easy here. Francis, I appreciate you. Thank you, sir. From up in Jersey. Glad to have you here. I will say, Michael, if you have anything specific that you want to ask on a calculation or some element, feel free to ask. And if I can answer it just right off the cuff, I'm more than happy to try to answer that for you. But other than that, I recommend you going over to paulabernathy.com and submitting what you want as a calculation that you're interested in, because we do have an extensive video collection on various calculations. So we have motor calcs, we have, again, so I understand wanting it on Coffee Hour because it's free, but we do have videos over on Fast Tracks Tube as well for all those that show their support over on Fast Tracks Tube. We appreciate it. Let's see, Alex, good morning. Let's see, Milton Toast, is this why you're on multiple platforms? Yes. So I host on a bunch of I think there's only 7 or so platforms that I host on. Yeah, I don't do just on Fast Tracks Tube because when we do the lives, we want it to be on. We have multiple LinkedIn's, and I always do this. It's just something I've always done, except for Instagram, which we only have the one feed because Instagram is a pain in the butt to stream on because you have to initiate it manually. Pain in the butt. And that's also why we don't do any like Rumble. We have a Rumble, but you have to do it manually. And so we have it set up with 2 Facebook accounts, 2 LinkedIn accounts, and 2 YouTube accounts. The YouTube accounts are obviously Master the NEC, and the other one's Coffee Hour with Paul. The LinkedIn account is Electrical Code Academy, and then my personal one under Paul Abernathy. And then we have the Facebook one under Master the NEC. And then we have my personal Facebook account, which probably most people won't see anyway. So I could probably drop that one because I'm sure the folks that I'm connected with on Facebook that I went to school with probably don't care about my videos. I'm just saying, they probably don't care. So I could probably drop that one and that type of thing. And they don't allow us to stream anymore into the groups like Coffee Hour Group. The restrictions on Facebook don't allow us to stream into those type of things. And then, of course, we stream on our Fast Tracks Tube as well as fasttracksystem.com. So we stream there as well. What's up, Red Dog?
Woo, 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 woo. Big dog.
California. Yeah, Chapter 8 is a tough unit. And if you don't get a chance to watch yesterday's replay, you want to watch it, Ruben, because it is all about Unit 8, that type of scenario. What's up? Good morning, Tino. Hopefully got you hooked up over there on the Fast Tracks Tube. Thank you for the conversation. That was me you were conversing with on the phone or on the texting. Let's see. Let's see here. I was watching, then it kicked me after I sent that. Okay. Yep, should be back going. Should be back on now. Let's see here. What we got? Santana. Good morning. Alberto from Nebraska, Cornhusker State. There you go. Let's see. What's up, Alberto? Missed all of you as well. Let's see. Where else we got? A bunch of wins. Let's see. Marlon. What we got here? Mr. Thank you for your info. Best Bit Software. You purchased it and you love it. Yeah, it is flat out, and you'll get better as you go, Marlon. You'll get better and better and better as you go. It is flat out, in my opinion, the best estimating software out there. So anybody who's in business, even small projects to large projects, it's no time like the present because things are going to get more competitive. As we have more money that's inflowing into our economy, as we grow, and we are going to grow, you're going to have more and more projects. And it's all about working smarter, not harder. And if you can learn an estimating software, no matter, I wouldn't spend the ones where you're spending $20,000, $15,000, and you have to pay monthly. Say, Best Bid Hybrid's a one-time fee. And there's so much in there to learn from it. And I got Steve Griffin, who's the one that runs that, is an amazing guy, and he'll work with you. Any questions you have, he has a down-to-earth country boy type of delivery, just real easy going type of delivery, and he can explain it. And so if you get into and the price is just amazing for a very detailed bidding software. It's just incredible. Let's see. Next replay should be, is that a personal wish there, Brandon? The commercial calculations? Let's see. 6:30. There's no real dive into 6:30, right? I mean, 6:30 is such a, be honest with you, one is you're not going to have the electric welders. You're not going to have a detailed, if you're doing it just to learn it, as far as on an exam, that is such a short little article that there's not a whole lot. It's more or less just lookup stuff. So, deep diving into 6:30 is there's not a whole lot. Maybe we'll cover it on a episode, try to cover the main topics because it is not very deep. In fact, I tell people when you're studying 6:30, look it over so that you just know where to go anytime you have a welder. excuse me, I don't know why my screen is jinking up on me. Electric welder questions you go to, but we do have a video talking about sizing welders and things like that. So that might be as beneficial for you. But there is a couple pieces in the welding application. I think the hardest parts in the welding is ampacity of conductors and the overcurrent protection. So we do actually have a video on that and a blog on that. But maybe we'll touch on that one day for individual welders and multiple welders and how you would size that out. Most of the time, that's just exam driven because you're not going to have multiple welders on the same circuit type of scenario, or you're not going to have that type of scenario in the real life. Probably going to have one welder, one dedicated run to each welder, and that's probably it, individual welder. But on an exam, you never know. You never know. Ryan Jackson also, I think, does an amazing video on welders as well, that type of thing. And I used to share some of Ryan's stuff over on the tube, but Ryan doesn't like when I share. He doesn't like when anybody shares his videos on the tube because the tube will restrict any type of monetization that they have. So we only share the free videos over there. Let's see here. Yep, some of it can be confusing. So we'll talk about, maybe we'll pick some elements of welders and we will talk about that. I have noted that down. To talk about welders. So we definitely got it on the list here, my friend. Okay. Just like this hazardous location today was brought up because somebody wanted me to talk about hazardous. So definitely. Do I have major areas? No. Studying for the NEC, you just study it. In our program, it's Unit 1 through Unit 19. It systematically walks you through it and those type of things. So we kind of have a logical step, but I've never created anything outside of that for anybody because it kind of defeated the purpose of selling courses. That type of thing. I do have some people over on some of the social channels that'll say, Paul's just selling courses. And I'm like, dude, what do you want me to give it all away? Okay. Do you give away your electrical work? No, you don't. That type of thing. So I really don't do a list, but I'm sure they're out there. But ours is kind of a fundamentally working through each thing. It's kind of like the chapters or the units that are in the program kind of work you through those elements, that type of thing. Okay. What's up, Angel? I'm doing good. One of the things, Edward, I will tell you, one of the things about major area is make sure you understand how to navigate the NEC. Make sure you understand single-family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, and commercial or non-dwelling applications. Make sure you understand the different elements there. The other stuff, like welders and all that stuff, that's piecemeal stuff. Learn the little aspects of it, but learn how to find it and where to go. And so one of the best tips I can tell people is there's a reason why I created that flashcard series over on our website was so that you get familiar with all the articles so that you can kind of roll it out, especially if you're in an exam. And then, of course, all the chapters so you know where to be, that type of thing. And then they kind of just re-hitting yourself with these flashcards will help give you, keep you fresh on it and you able to go to things quickly. So that's the biggest thing, navigation. Now, those exams where there are 2 tests, like in Texas, where you have the lookups and then you have the calculations, make sure you understand the fundamentals of each thing. Single-family dwelling, multifamily dwelling, commercial dwelling, or other than dwelling applications. Make sure you understand the fundamentals of each step. Okay, that's why we do those little cheat sheets or those little calculation cards or forms that are in our program so that you learn each step. I had a guy one time say, Paul, I don't use those because I can't use them on an exam. I was like, well, duh, they're to teach you the steps so that in case you get asked any single question, then you know how to function and do each little test, each little question that may be a calculation or may be one specific thing. So that's why we create that way. Just learn those fundamentals. One of the other things I would tell people to focus on is go watch our derating demystified video. Make sure you understand how to do conductor calculations, understand the difference between continuous load and non-continuous load and how they would apply. Understand that you have to protect a circuit at its ampacity, so understand how to calculate ampacity, and understand the difference between 125 and 80%, which are reciprocal. So if I'm doing an overcurrent protected device and I'm going to limit it to 80%, So if I take a conductor and it's a continuous load, let's say, so say I've got 20 amps of continuous load, then I take that 20 amps when sizing a conductor at 125%, and then I size the overcurrent device, which means that when I look at the overcurrent device and I do it by 80%, which is a reciprocal of 125, then you'll see that that'll come out to what the ampacity is for that conductor that I chose. So get used to those different things and how that applies. And for God's sakes, don't let the 125 and 80% get in your head. You are not going to see the term 80% anywhere in the NEC. You have to understand that 80% is the reciprocal of 125. If I take a 20 amp device and I do it at 80%, it's 16 amps. If I take a 16 amp device and I do it at 125%, it's going to be 20 amps. 20 amps at 80% is 16 amps. So they're reciprocal. So depending on what is given to you, whether you've been given the continuous load, then you can work it out. If you've been given the overcurrent device and they want to know what the maximum continuous load is on it, then you can work it out. You just simply take the overcurrent device, right, and you multiply it by 80%. And that's going to be the limited amount of continuous load that you can have, that type of thing. Also, don't get confused when it comes to continuous loads. A 20 amp load, if I'm on an exam and I tell you that 20 amps is a continuous load, then that is the continuous load. That is the load. The only reason you're adding 125% to it, or that additional 25, is because you're being told it's a continuous load, and you have to size conductors that way based on 210.19 or 215.3. I believe it's 3. That's telling you to take continuous loads at 125%, but it's still, the load is the load. We're just telling you, and they'll tell you if it's a continuous load. So those are the areas if I had to tell you that's the kind of stuff to focus on. Let's see here. Let's see, Gregory, good morning. Glad to have you here. Ryan, good morning. Blue Ridge, Texas. Glad to have you here. I'm going to catch up on these things, folks, real quick. Joseph, good morning. Adrian, good morning, down in Houston, Texas. Angel, good morning. I am doing well. Let's see here. AJ, which calculation do you use wire fill or wire bending space in a wire trough? We have a video for that, but that's, again, depending on whether it's a pull box. You treat wireways as pull boxes, and it ends up telling you that in the wireway. Of course, you have cross-sectional area issues. We do actually have a blog. That's another thing. Let me explain to people. I am amazed of all the people that watch us I mean, I get it. We all want to watch video. I say video is rotten the brain, which is why originally I was hesitant of doing course videos. They were basically ancillary videos, but I believe watching videos rots the brain when it comes to electrical knowledge, because you watch something, and since you know that you can always go back and watch it again, you don't force yourself to remember it. And so that's why I tell people, blog. Go read our blogs. I have some really good blogs in there about raceway fill. I have blogs in there about cable tray applications, and definitely want to check out our blogs and read. Don't always have to watch. People say, well, I'm a visual learner. Well, I get it, but you've got to, on an exam, you've got to be able to see a question, read it, and comprehend it. So I am still a big believer. I'm old school in that. I am a big believer that you need to read stuff. And if you read it once and you don't understand it, you read it again, because that tells you that you have reading comprehension issues. And so that type of thing. So there you go. But we have that over on, and as far as fill and a space, things like that, all of that stuff is going to be in 314.28. And in all of respective metal wireway or non-metallic, it'll have rules that tell you to follow the rules in 314.28 if you're 4 and larger, and things like that. So that's the type of rules, that things that you should be looking for that. But I do have a video out on wireway sizing. Actually do. Can't tell you exactly where it is. You'd have to go search for it, but we do have it. What's up, Sparky? Glad to have you here. Where we at here? New place. Thanks for coming. Let's see, Rob. I'm 28 minutes in, and I still haven't done a damn lesson yet. Answering a lot of questions. Okay, let's see here. Brandon says he would love to stay and watch, but got to run. Take care, Brandon. Good luck. Let's see here. One reason EC&M and IAEI magazines are dying. Nobody wants to read. Exactly true. Nobody wants to read anymore. And I get it. But a lot of times reading is something about it. I'm not saying that videos are dead. I mean, because that's the attention span. That's why TikTok is so popular, right? Everybody's attention span is so short. 3 minutes is all the damn time they got to look at something. Okay, flipping by, flip, 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 flip. Okay, like me, I just flip, flip, flip. But you have to take the time to read stuff. It just is what it is. So we create these blogs. So hopefully you'll check out the blogs. They're on our website. Can't miss it. It says blogs. But scroll through them. There's quite a couple dozen in there that are really informative, and check them out. There is some on ampacities and things like that. So make sure you check them out. What's up, Lone Wire Nut? Thanks for joining us. All right, let's get into the lesson today so I can get into something here. All right, so objective over the next couple days, if we don't finish this, what's up, 1213, Taker-esque so, Taker AC so? I'm not sure what that is, but welcome. Thanks for joining us. So over the next couple days, if we don't finish, we're going to be studying in this lesson. We're going to explain what constitutes a Class 1, Class 2, Class 3 location, as well as the parameters of Division 1 and Division 2. Taker said, ain't nobody got time for that. Well, it's an effective way to learn is reading, understanding it. But you know what? It's okay. You do you, boo. Next, it says summarizing provisions pertaining to commercial garages and the different types of repair garages. We'll recall that Article 13 applies to building structures or parts thereof inside which aircraft are housed, stored, serviced, repaired, or altered. Spend very little time on 513 because that's a more of a lookup thing. And I do not know how many of you, except for maybe Tom, is working where they might have aircraft hangars. But again, it's just for code, just for learning. Okay, yeah. All for cracks and giggles. Let's see, and then clarify the distinction between Division 1's normal operating conditions and Division 2's abnormal operating conditions. So basically, long and short, in Class 1, Division 1, we expect a hazard to be there under normal operating conditions. It's there all the time, right? Whereas Division 2 says, no, it's only there. It may be present, but it's only in concentrations that could be volatile under an abnormal operation. Means something breaks down, something goes wrong. What's up, David? Glad to have you here. That type of thing. So we'll kind of discuss all that. We will recall Articles 500 through 504. Cover requirements for electrical and electronic equipment wiring of all voltages with hazardous locations, which potential fire, explosion hazards due to the presence of flammable gases, flammable liquids, combustible dusts, and ignitable fibers and flying fibers. Okay, hold on for a second real quick. I gotta make sure I mute this. Otherwise, I'm liable to get calls right in the middle of it. Okay. Next, recall that a motor fuel dispensing facility is defined as that portion of the property where the motor fuel are stored and dispensed from fixed equipment into the fuel tanks of motor vehicles or marine craft or into approved containers. I say I have an approved container, but I found out the other day that a normal gas can is not technically approved for diesel. I couldn't see that anywhere, but that's what somebody told me. I was like, oh, okay. But like y'all all know, I just don't take things for gospel. But I was told that, by the way. Including all equipment used in connection therewith. Remember to look in Article 516 to find requirements for spray applications, dipping, coating, and printing processes using flammable or combustible materials. Very little will we look at that. We'll cover the top of it. This is to introduce you into hazardous locations and encourage you that when I tell people to study for exams, this is something I'll give you a little thing that I do with people. If you're not studying for an exam and you're just out in the field and you say, well, how do I get better at the code to make my job better? And you might be one of those guys that say, I never look at the code book. Once I got my license, I don't know. This isn't a place for you. If you're one of those kind of guys, what the hell are you doing here? Really? Because these are about people that want to ongoing learn about the code, dig into the code, always striving to learn more. But you need to test yourself outside of a comfort zone. For example, if you're not well versed in hazardous locations, then during a study period, you want to sit down and work through hazardous locations. You want to read it. You want to try to understand it. You want to use Trade Hog if you want to ask it, cut and paste anything in there and ask it to clarify something. You want to use resources, ask questions, really dig into it. That's how you study a topic. So I tell people all the time, get out of your comfort zone. If you feel like you struggle with motors, right? So then one of the things that you do is that you spend a session, a training session. I've heard me say this before. When you're studying for an electrical exam, how much time should you be putting into study? You should be putting in at least 3 months, 90 days, studying at least 2 times a week for 4 hours each session. Okay. And if you're studying for an exam and you don't have the time to do that, you probably don't really need to be an electrician. You probably should go do something else. Just saying. We have to put in the time to study to get it right and pass that exam the first time, right? And so you got to put in the effort. But when you take one of those study periods, then what you want to do is if there's something you feel like you're struggling on, motors, then 4:30 is where you should be sitting, okay? And really focusing on that. Take care, Tom. We wanted hazardous locations, and just before I even get into it, you're taking off. I hear you. No, I understand. Take care. All right. So anyway, let's get back to the lesson. All right. Introduction. All right. Hazardous locations are divided into certain categories and subcategories, otherwise known as classes and divisions. Class 1, Class 2, Class 3. And then we have Division 1, Division 2. Division 1, more restrictive than Division 2. Okay. Articles 500 through 504 cover the requirements for electrical and electronic equipment and wiring of all voltages. Okay, that's another thing to remember. This is an all voltage application. In Class 1, Class 1, Division 1 and 2, Class 2, Division 1 and 2, and then Class 3, Division 1 and 2. One of the things that you can just prepare yourself for in an exam, and it's easy to remember that Article 500 kind of gives you the overreaching requirements for hazardous classified locations. Then 501, think of the 1 for Class 1, goes into flammable vapors and liquids and things like that. So that's what 501 is. 502 is combustible dust, okay? So think of 502 as Class 2, should be easy, right? And then, of course, you get into easily ignitable fibers and flyings, and that, of course, that's 503. So think Class 3, that type of area. Now, the severity, as I said, of the condition, and we'll talk about the different things with each class at a very high level, because I am by no means, I tell people all the time, I can teach you the code, I can teach you hazardous classified locations, I can teach you what you need to pass an exam, I can answer your technical questions, and I serve a lot of questions that come to me from commercial side about hazardous locations. As far as being the definitive expert at something like hazardous locations, no. There are a few of those out there that I hold to high esteem, that I consider the definitive expert, the go-to person for something like this. But at the end of the day, I am very proficient with hazardous classified locations, but there are some folks that are flat out, that is all they do. They specialize in it, right? And so it's one of those things that, you search for those type of people if you need a specialist, somebody that says, you know what, the rest of the NEC I'm great at, but hazardous locations. Like for me, Chapter 3 is my area. 250 grounding and bonding is my area. I know the code well, but those are my areas. Okay, wiring methods, wire conductors, ampacities, calculations. That's my area. I am not the best go-to guy when it comes to hazardous location. I can explain it. I can give you what the code says. But I personally don't feel that is my area of my best expertise. Okay, just so you know. All right. But I know more than most people do when it comes to these locations. So anyway, so think about Division 1, Division 2. Again, Division 1, it's under normal conditions, the hazards occur day in and day out. Under Division 2, it takes an abnormal situation, a rupture, or something like that, a spillage due to storage area or something like that that could raise the elevated up. So that's the difference in severity between a Division 1 and Division 2. Okay. Division 1, Division 2 locations where potential fire or explosion hazards exist due to the presence of flammable gases, flammable liquids, combustible dust, or ignitable flyings and fibers. So that covers your gamut of the hazardous locations. Now, of course, it does break into things like commercial garages, aircraft hangars that are going to have a fuel pump dispensing. It's going to have their own rules, okay? But here we're just talking about hazard locations in general. That's 500s, the general application, and then you've got 501, 502, 503, and that type of thing, okay? And then you got zones that you deal in 504. Okay, so let's talk about hazardous locations, kind of an overview. Class 1 locations are those in which flammable gases, flammable liquid producing vapors, or combustible liquid producing vapors are or may be present in the air in quantities sufficient to produce an explosion or ignitable mixtures. Okay? Explosive or ignitable mixture. Class 1 locations shall include those specified in 500.5B1 and B2. Okay, so this is where we typically will go look at the NEC, kind of so we can have a look at what those look like, put our eyes on those. Okay, so again, we're in 500, and I'll show you what that looks like. So let's kind of go here. I don't want to lose your comments, so we'll go right here and deal with it. Okay, I'll push this down. So here's 500. You notice how this one is kind of the whole ball of wax, right? This is everything. So it's going to be a lot of general information here to be aware of, talking about the different classifications and whatnot. And then when you want to dig down deeper and say you have an exam question, you want to dig down deeper, then you dig down into 501 or 502 or 503, depending on what you're dealing with, okay? And you'll have different group classifications in class 1. And things like that, temperature markings in class 1, all those type of things. So again, we cover all the general stuff in 500, all right? So in this case, it was 505B. So we'll go down real quick to that. So here's the classifications of locations, okay? This is very important because we have to establish that first. What do we have? Okay, what class do we dealing with? All right, so it has locations. So here it says locations shall be classified depending on the properties of the flammable gas, flammable vapors, vapor-producing vapors, a combustible liquid-produced vapors, combustible dusts, or flyings and fibers that could present, and the likelihood that a flammable or combustible concentration or quantity is present. Each room, this is important to remember because I get a lot of requests on drawings that come from engineers, have different rooms within a big structure. And each of these rooms may have different classifications depending on the different rooms. I might have an area that is unclassified right next to a room that is a classified location. And so you're going to have raceways that may come from a classified into an unclassified or vice versa. And so that's why you have to be careful how these things lay out. You could have a location that would be a class 1, division 1, that's going to transition from there out of that room. Your raceways, I mean, power's got to get there, doesn't it? So it's going to transition into a location that may be transitioning to what would be considered a class 1, division 2 location, that type of thing. Okay, so got to be familiar with all these type of things. But here's important. Each room, section, or area shall be considered individually in determining its classification. Each room, not just do one and say this goes for the whole building. Why is that so important? Well, that's so important for electrical designers because I get people all the time that'll contact me and ask me questions about a hazardous location, and they forget that that only applies to the area where you have the hazardous classified location. That's it. Doesn't apply to the areas. Maybe you have an office area where it's seating and all that. It does not apply there, but it would apply out where you have a class. So you might have an unclassified area where the office people work, where your office is, or in a building. But then you have right next to an area that would be considered a classified location. The wiring methods that are allowed in the unclassified location are vastly different. Maybe the same type of wiring methods, but the seal-offs and other type of stuff are vastly different than what would be required in the classified location. Granted, you're also going to see that you have rules that when you transition between these different classifications, that you might have seal-offs that you have to have in order to be able to keep gases from transmitting from one location to another location. Okay, atmospheric pressures and things like that can push the gases through raceways and things like that, so we seal them off, that type of thing. But you'll see all that. We'll cover all of that type of good stuff. Let's see here. Back to the NEC real quick. All right, so that's where you get. So that's basically telling you what the premise is. Okay, has location, and then it goes on, and then of course you see that it talks about class locations. Okay, it says class locations are those which flammable gases, flammable liquid producing vapors, or combustible liquid producing vapors are or may be present in the air in quantities sufficient to produce explosive or ignitable mixtures. Class 1 locations shall include those specified in 500.5b1 and b2, which is just what we saw, okay? So down here is your Class 1, Division 1 locations, okay? This is where you determine your locations, okay? All right? So if you think, what's up, Van Man? Glad to have you here. When you think about it, this is where you really, unless an engineer already specifies out what it is, for an exam, this is where you go, unless on the exam question they already tell you that it is a Class 1, Division 1 location. If they do, then again, you can kind of skip going here, right? Because they're already telling you that. In the real world, no, you really can't skip. You need to make sure that wherever you're at, that if you meet any of these conditions right here, or these type of things here, then guess what? I have got a Class 1 Division 1 location. Why is that important? Because we have certain wiring methods and certain seal-off requirements that have to take place in those types of locations, right? There is an informational note down here, and it is really good, okay? Because it gives you some examples that you can relate to and say, well, man, my place, I don't know. I'm looking at this list, and I don't know if use the notes and just look down and say, well, these are informational notes, but it's a good list of locations that may be similar or may be identical to your situation. And you're like, oh, well, that makes it simple. I'm dealing with a Class 1, Division 1 location. And then my wiring methods, seal-offs, and all that type has to be achieved accordingly, that type of thing. And of course, you have what's called a Class 1, Division 2. Same scenario right here, okay? So one of the things I'll just point out the difference in the Division 1, Division 2 that helps people is that if you read this portion right here, this is the very first one right here. It says where all of those, and I won't reread those again, y'all, the gases, flammable, producing vapor, yada, yada, yada. It says can exist under normal operating conditions. They're there all the time. They're part of the operation. There's a volatile mixture that could be there at any given time under normal day in and day out applications. Okay, that would be a Division 1. A Division 2 would say in which volatile, all of those types of things. I won't reread those again. I'll use, but which the liquids, vapors, or gases will normally be confined within closed containers or closed system from which they can escape only in the case of an accident under rupture or breakdown of such containers or systems, or in case of abnormal operation of the equipment. So if the condition is volatile, is there all the time, then it is a Class 1 Division 1, or the engineer will spec that out because of what's being produced in the area. Under Division 2, it's only there when there is a situation where it could escape, where it could accidentally rupture, maybe it's under pressure, pressurized connections and all this kind of stuff, and such breakdown of the system could raise it to an abnormal condition. Well, that's a Division 2, that type of thing. Okay, so again, it should be on your drawings. It should be clear if you're dealing with a hazardous location. They should make it pretty damn clear, okay? And then for Class 2, it does the same thing. Okay, class 2, okay, and this for combustible dust. So the first tip I give for people is determine what you have, okay? Determine what you have. It may be easy to determine whether it's a class 1, class 2, or class 3 because they'll tell you in the question. They'll say either it's dust, or they'll say it's flyings or fibers, or they'll say it's gas or vapor. That's easy. Next, you have to determine whether or not it's a Division 1 or Division 2, that type of thing, okay? And the good news is they probably will give you most of this stuff on your exam, so that's not going to be that big of a deal. And then you do the same thing for Class 3. Then the next thing you look is the class or the group classifications that are covered. All right, so the materials. Okay, so here is Class 1 group classifications. Okay, it says Class 1 groups shall be in accordance with 500.6A through A1 through A4. So this is pretty easy because it's just a lookup. So you do get these exam questions, and it might ask you a question, and you know that it's going to be in a group 1, or excuse me, a class 1, and you're like, okay, and then it'll ask you the different types of materials, okay? And so you go down here and you say, well, it would be considered class 1 group A if it was an acetylene, right? And then you got group B if it's flammable gas, flammable liquid producing vapors, combustible liquid producing vapors, mixture with that mixed with air that may burn or explode, having either a maximum experimental safe gap value less than or equal to 0.45 millimeters, or a minimum ignition current ratio of less than or equal to 0.40. And you see all of this comes out, there you go. It's referencing the NFPA 497 standard. This is stuff that's going to be marked on the equipment. Okay, so if those are the type of things that you're not going to have to worry about too much in an exam. They're going to give you the information that you need. One of the things I remember is these values on an exam, that type of thing, because they'll tell you it's flammable gas with a yada, 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 experimental safe gap value, or they'll say it's a minimum ignition current ratio, MIC ratio. They'll give you these values. And what you really are doing is coming to here to see if they fall. Because again, here it says it has to be less than or equal to this, okay? So it has to be less than or equal to it, okay? So there you go. And then, of course, you have Group C. Again, it's talking about these values again. See some of the changes here when it would be in a Group C. And then you have Group D. You see these values change, okay? You notice that the minimum ignition igniting current ratio changes. So that could be a question on an exam that'll give you a value, and you need to know if it's a flammable gas. It may give you a value, and you need to go look and see whether it falls under Group D, C, or even B. Because as you can see, the values are slightly different for each one of these. So again, it's kind of things they have to give you on an exam, right? In order to be able to understand it. And then, of course, you have same thing for combustible dust. So remember, A, B, C, and D, in your mind, remember flammable gases, things like that, okay? Vapors, whatnot. Remember that, okay? When you get to, so if you have a question on an exam and you see something about a group E and F, then you know that you're dealing with combustible dust groups. So that's just something to remember to get you started and where you may need to go. So if I'm looking at a code question on an exam and it's talking about a group E, then I know that I'm dealing with a class 2. Now, whether or not it's a Division 1 or Division 2 means you're going to have to dig, and it may not be germane to the question. It may be just asking you about the group rating, that type of thing, and what group it is. So just things to remember. So combustible dust shall be grouped in accordance with 500.6 B1 through B3. Okay, so there's your E's. Okay, and this is dealing with combustible metal dust, including aluminum, magnesium, and things like that. Group F, okay, combustible carbonaceous dust, whatever that is. And I would think that would be like coke or coal, not the coke that some people will say. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, that type of thing. So, and here it says coke carbon black, which again, we have a lot of carbon black is used a lot in wire and cable manufacturers for putting into the insulation, black insulation, to give it flame retardant resiliencies and things like that. Carbon black is used. So again, you store that. So you have areas, we may have areas at Encore Wire where we store these chemicals that are going to be in that area that is classified, not the rest of the facility out beyond it, but in a certain area that it may use pressurization as a retention for that area to block off. Okay, you'll see where pressurization can be used later. And we may have things like carbon black in there. Okay, and then that would be a group F application. Right, and then of course you have a group G. Okay, and it's the atmosphere and containing combustible dust that are not included in E or F, and it includes things like flour, grain, wood, plastic, and chemicals, things like that. Okay. So one of the things to remember is the different groups. So I tell people when it comes to exam prep for hazardous location, you're probably going to have only a few questions, maybe one or maybe two. But just get better at understanding that A, B, C, and D, gases, flammable vapors. E, F, and G are dealing with combustible dusts, right? And then you'll go down and you'll see that class 3, which is those fibers and flyings, are not be grouped. Okay, so there's not really a grouping for those. Okay, so your grouping has to do with things that are more volatile, that type of scenario. Okay, and then lastly, just we'll cover each little piece here because it's going to be a lot in these episodes, but we'll cover. Let's see. I wanted to cover. Let's see here. Let me do it real quick. Hold on here real quick. Let me cover this one real quick because before I go into all these little things. Okay, equipment. Okay, so 500.8, the equipment. Notice that this is kind of grayed out or tanned out or whatnot. That signifies that it is a change. So, by the way, if you do see this type of thing in your code, it means there was verbiage changed, something changed. So it's explosion-proof or dust ignition-proof equipment shall not be permitted to be used at temperatures lower than negative 25°C. I can see this on an exam question. Okay, so I cannot use explosion-proof or dust ignition-proof equipment on temperatures lower than negative 25 unless they are identified for low temperature service. I can see that on an exam. So they say something and they don't mention that it's identified for an application, and they want to know, and they give you a temperature and they tell you it's explosion proof and all that, and they give you answers. Is this acceptable? And the answer to be no, unless of course it's identified for those low temperatures. If it is not lower than this, so equal to this or greater, then it does not have to be identified for low temperature service. It's still, based on its listing, it's still explosion proof or dust ignition proof equipment. It's just for applications negative 25°C and above, that type of thing. Okay. And the only other one real quick that is the markings, right? That we'll cover right this second. So this is the marking. So equipment, all types of equipment that'll be utilized inside of these hazardous locations that we're discussing. It says equipment shall be marked to show the environment to which it has been evaluated. Unless otherwise specified or allowed in 500.8C6, the marking shall include the information specified in 500.8C1 through C5. And what does that mean? That means the equipment that's going to be utilized inside of this hazardous location has to have its class marking on it, okay, to where it's suitable for use. It has to have its division marked on it to let you know whether it's for the marking shall specify the division if the equipment is suitable for division 2 only, Equipment suitable for Division 1 shall be permitted to omit the division marking. Why? Because generally, and we'll talk about this a little later, but typically equipment that is okay for use in Division 1 is going to be okay for in Division 2. Why? Because Division 2 is the lesser of the two divisions. Okay, and so obviously, if it's okay for Division 1, which is a more restrictive, a more stringent listing, then obviously it's going to be okay for Division 2. But that's not the other way around. Not always. You can't have something that is okay for Division 2 only and think that you can use it in a Division 1. No, that's not the case. Okay, so kind of one of the things to remember in that scenario is that a Division 1 equipment can be, now there are some caveats to that. For example, when it comes to combustible dust, something may be Division 1, but it doesn't necessarily mean, it might be even Class 1, but it doesn't mean you can use it in a different group or different class, especially if it may be covered with the combustible dust type material or caked in it. Then it doesn't, there are some restrictions there, and we'll cover that. But I want you to remember at a very high level that if it's Division 1 equipment, then it can be used in Division 2. If it's Division 2 only, it can't be used in Division 1, that type of thing, okay? But your Division 1 may be acceptable in a Division 2 within its what? Within its class, that type of thing, within its temperature ratings, all those type of things. So that's just stuff I'm giving you right now. We're obviously going to get deeper into this, but just kind of little tidbits of info that I'm giving you to take along with your knowledge base here, okay? So we kind of covered all three of these. Class 1, temperature, marking, specified. Oh, we didn't really cover all of them. Let me get back here real quick. So that was also of the things that have to be marked. So that's the division. It has to be marked with the materials classification group, which was what we just saw, right? We have to know whether or not it's the group, whether or not it's what class it is, like I said, A, B, C, or D, or E, or F, or that type of thing, depending on the equipment. So it has to be marked, okay? It says the marking shall specify the applicable material classification groups or specific gas, vapor, dust, or fiber flyings in accordance with 500.6, okay? That type of scenario. And equipment temperatures. Okay, here you've got a nifty little table down here. Okay, classifications of maximum safe temperatures. Okay, temperature class are called T codes. They'll be marked on the equipment. You ought to be able to look at the T code class, and then you can go over here and see the maximum temperatures, and then you'll have a list that corresponds with the T code, which will be what is marked on your actual equipment. That type of thing. Okay, and then of course you have all of this information here that you should go back and read it. We'll cover pieces of it as we go. But again, we're doing a 30,000 foot view here on Coffee Hour. We ain't got but an hour. Okay? And I've already gone over an hour because of all the welcomes that I do. All right, let's keep going now. All right, so Class 2, that was Class 1. Class 2 locations are those that are hazardous because of the presence of a combustible dust. Class 2 locations shall include those specified in 500.5C1 and C2. So again, back at 500, because 500 gives us the list, right? So when we think about the 500, that's going to go back and say, well, what are we talking about when it comes to combustible dust, right? And that's where we saw here, and we looked at the right here, right? And we've got here. This is any of them that are going to create this type of environment. Okay. Let's see real quick. Sure I'm the right one. Yep. Okay. All right. This is for the locations again. All right. Hold on here. Get back there. All right. Right. So here's our locations. That type of scenario. And here's our Division 2. So this was Division 1. If that's your location based on those conditions that apply. And there's your 2. I don't need to go over again the difference between Division 1 and Division 2. Hopefully you all understand that by now. Hopefully you understand it by now. Okay? All right. The Class 2 group classifications are covered in 500.6b. We already looked at that. That was E and F applications. So we already kind of went over that. Let's see here. let's say E, F, and G. Okay, so we had E, which was magnesium, aluminum, metal dust. And then we had F, which was dealing more with coke, coal, those type of things, carbon black, that kind of dust. And then of course we had group G, which covers everything else like wood grain, wood grain, plastic, other chemicals that may be in the air, that type of thing, in the atmosphere, I should say. Right, and then of course there you go. And then we didn't cover combustible fibers and flyings yet, but that would be like a wood pulp shop or things like that, a woodworker shop, things like that. Okay. Let's see here. So equipment approved, again, listed or classified for class 1 locations are not. This is important to remember. Kind of said it, but remember, this is now talking about the different classes, class 1 to class 2. Equipment approved, listed, or classified for class 1 locations, which remember was flammable vapors, gases, things like that, are not automatically approved for class 2 and class 3 locations. Class 1 equipment may not operate at that safe temperature under a blanket of dust or fibers. So it may have been evaluated under a certain temperature, its T rating based on its atmospheric condition and where it's located. But you take that and you're thinking, well, dude, it's a class 1. It's more sealed. It ought to be perfectly fine in a class 2 or class 3. But think about the class you're using it in. The class 1, it's not going to be covered in anything that's going to allow that heat to build up. It's kind of basically open air. Whereas if you deal in class 2 or class 3, it could be a dealing where it develops a coating of dust on it or fibers or whatnot. So it means the temperature, it will be insulating it, and the heat could rise up. We don't want that, okay? We still are dealing with volatile, flammable applications, right? So it's saying just because it's class 1, don't automatically assume that it can be used in a class 2 or class 3, okay? Class 1 equipment may not operate at a safe temperature under the blanket of dust and fibers. Equipment that has been identified for a Division 1 location can be installed in a Division 2 location of the same class, okay? Class 1, Class 2, Class 3. So Division 1 can be used in Division 2, but again, don't assume that the Division 2 can be used in a Division 1 unless it's been evaluated to be used in both, okay? I have to reiterate that because that's an important thing to remember and can get confusing for people. Now, class 3 locations are those that are hazardous because of the presence of combustible or ignitable fibers or flying, such as rayon or cotton plant, that type of thing. You always have those little flyings in the air, that type of thing. Class 3 locations shall include those specified in 500.5 D1 and D2. It's very much the same as what we had before, but we'll go look at these because, again, you never know what may be on an exam. Okay, so we're looking at D, okay, and there is no grouping, so let's look at 500.5. Hold on here. Let's get me right here. So here is 500.5D, Class 3 locations. It says Class 3 locations shall be locations meeting the requirements of 500.5 D1 and D2. So this is your Division 1. Gives you all the parameters here, okay? And then you've got that, and then you have Division 2, okay? Essentially the same type of application, okay? We won't go into those because, again, it's just a matter of reading it. So it's not worth going too deep into those, that type of thing, okay? And again, there are no groups, okay, for this application. You're just looking for class ratings, okay? Class 3, that type of scenario. All right, so hammering these things home under normal operating conditions, every day, day in and day out. You're going to walk into a facility, you walk into the room that they would classify as a hazardous location, you walk into there under normal conditions. Division 1 locations contain, under their normal application, ignitable or combustible elements, gas, dust, fiber, etc. Under normal conditions. We haven't gotten that far. In quantities sufficient to produce explosive or ignitable mixtures. Okay, that's going to be a Division 1, depending on whether you're in a Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3. In order to understand the division, you need to know what is there under normal operation, that type of thing. Now, in most cases, locations where combustible or ignitable elements, gas, dust, or fibers are not ordinarily present in the air in quantities that are sufficient to produce explosive or ignitable mixtures, then we're going to class those as a division 2. It's less restrictive. It's more restrictive than an unclassified area, which is just a normal area, but you have to be careful because there are different allowable wiring methods that can be used in each one of those. So all we're doing, one, is establishing the area. The engineers will establish the motors that are going in a certain area or the equipment that can go in a certain area based on its ratings and the location, those type of things. What's important to us as electricians is that we understand that we're going to be making connections in these locations. And sometimes we have to double check the engineer to make sure that they didn't forget a seal off, or that maybe there's a piece of equipment that's being located and it needs to have a rating that maybe they missed it. And you're their second set of eyes. They're not perfect. We're not perfect. So again, always keeping your eyes on it. And again, realizing that something that may be a division 2, you might say, well, you know what? I can use this in a division 1. No, don't assume that at all. All right, testing our knowledge. Let's see what y'all guys say. It says class 2 locations are hazardous because of the presence of what? Flammable gases and vapors, combustible dusts, easily ignitable fibers and flags, or explosive agents. Okay, what do you think? Class 2. You should know by now. And we'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever your answers, put them in there. Let me know you're still here. And I will look at Rob's question, statement here. It says, Rob, so my wood shop in my garage would be class 2 division 1 since it has dust in the air when I'm operating the tools. It depends on the level of concentration. That type of thing. Okay, so you have to know the level of concentration. Most people, if it's just a personal residence, you're not going to have it there at the levels all the time, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean just because you do some woodworking in your garage, it's not one of those things that's going to immediately say that you have a hazardous location just because you do some woodworking in there. That type of thing. Under normal conditions means it would be there all the time. In your case, it's only there when you're working in the wood shop. Now, you should take extra precautions and things like that, but I doubt you're going to have it at the concentration levels and that you would have, that type of thing. And I would definitely not, and in your garage, when you're dealing with garage and you're working with, there's a big difference also from combustible dust. So if you're working in a wood shop, chances are you're more of a possibility of being a class 3. But again, is it at those volatile levels? Probably not unless you're working in there every day and it's part of your production, that type of thing. Then there's a hard press. You would not classify that location as such. That type of thing. That makes sense? Okay, everybody says 2. All right, so let's see here. There it is. Combustible dust. Absolutely. Class 2. So combustible dust within the category that you're dealing with in your garage, probably not what I'd consider combustible dust. And again, you can go to 500 and look and see what qualifies as that. All right. All right, folks, we just started into this journey. We're going to talk about hazardous locations. Now we're going to get into the different connections, raceways, fittings, NPT threading, which is your national standard pipe thread taper. All those type of things. We'll talk about that. So we're going to get into those type of things, but let's go on and do some giveaways. Get you on the list here. And spin the wheel. Hopefully you got something out of today. I've got a little slow start. I will try to get started a little quicker. And if y'all like the shout outs, some people sent me an email, said, Paul, just get rid of the shout outs so we can get straight into the lesson. Y'all let me know what y'all want. Some people love to see me shout out to you. And some people say, just go into the lesson. Let me know. Hey, I don't mind. I'll start teaching it quicker. It don't make a difference to me. All right, so let's go. I'm going to spin the wheel. Just chill out in the morning. So, all right, Felix. All right, Felix. You are registered for the electrician's knife. Okay, and this is exactly what it looks like. It's a little mini knife, and I can tell you it's sharp because I cut myself on it. Yep, Paul's got those pretty hands. You're doing something he shouldn't have done. Womp womp womp. All right, let's do it again. You were in the drawing. Drawing is June, right around June 30th, which is my birthday. All right. Let's see what we got. I think you already have that, so we're going to spin again for you. I think you already have that. I make some good points while I'm shouting out. Yeah, sometimes you never know where I'll go, so sometimes it is beneficial, that type of thing. Wire waffle. All right, Melton Coast. I think you already said one other time that you. I think you said that you don't do commercial. I mean, you don't do residential, so you don't need the wire waffle. I don't know. Let me know if you want me to spin again. But I've got you down here for a wire waffle. Free wire waffle. I don't remember. So let me know. I'll spin again for you. But let's go on and do this again. Somebody else here. Yeah, it all depends. There's always some knowledge everywhere. You never know where you get it. Well, all right, Terry, you're in the drawing for the NFC card. Anybody that doesn't know what that is our promo card. That's what it is. Thick card with an NFC on it. You can reprogram this to put your website on it. I don't both. You don't do either one of them, so you don't need the wire waffle. Oh, Rob, that's you? Okay. I was trying to remember. Rob is Melting Toast. But it is nice if you want to put your website on it or whatnot. Oh, you do both. Okay, cool. And you can tap somebody's phone and put all your information on their phone, or you can leave ours and share it with other electricians to share the products and stuff that we offer. However you want, it comes like that. The promo coffee hour, limited supply of these, but it will have the NFC, and you are registered to win one of those. Okay, that type of thing. All right, Rob, I'm going to leave you down for the wire waffle. As always, send us your email, your physical address. I'm sure you've already sent. And when I ask folks this, I tell you to send me your stuff. I do want you to send it to me again because, again, I get thousands of emails and they get lost. And I send the emails for anybody who wins anything. I send those to Jeff. So I don't necessarily keep it. And I don't know that Jeff can go back through it and look for it the same way. So always resend it to me again. I know, it's a pain in the butt, but it is. I'm old school. That's how I work. All right, let's see what we got here. Give another giveaway. We're over a little bit over today. Appreciate all of you. Christopher, I think you have Fast Tracks too. So we can extend it out from whatever today is, a year from now. Oh, by the way, on that, if you already have a year, for example, we don't put another year on top of that. Basically, what it does is you may only get a couple months. So let's say you had 6 months in your Fast Tracks tube and you get this and you're like, I already have the tube. And we say, well, we can extend it out and give you a year. We'll extend the year from whatever that today is. So with the day that we do it, we'll bump it up another year from that date. So you may, may paid for a year and you still have 6 months on it. And if you win the year and you say add it to it, yeah, you're only going to get 6 more months added to it. But it's still 6 more months of free. Okay. But to make sure I'm clear on that, how we do that. That type of thing. All right, Christopher, I got you down. If you already have that, then I can spin again for you. Shout out to all the folks over on Instagram. Your chats don't appear here, but I see you over there, so appreciate you. Yep, it works. It's effective. All right, so let's see here. Let's see. Usual May. Wow, I'm not going to even try to pronounce that, but you're in the drawing for Trade Hog. And if anybody hasn't tried Trade Hog yet, you really need to try it. I think it's an amazing. At the least, you can go with the cheapest one, which is the Trade Hog Lite, which is like $9.95 a month. Yeah, it's a monthly subscription, but it's always there. If you want to get some of the more, if you ask a lot of questions, and then you can jump up to the basic or even the premium. Basic's the great middle of the road, and so it works fine. That type of thing. Okay. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll let you go because I am running late for you folks. And I do understand that I want to be good stewards of your time. Hopefully you got something out of today. Just starting into hazardous locations, right? Just starting into it. We'll get into the thread, the locations and the breakdown and all those type of things, protection methods and all that kind of stuff. We'll get into that as well over the next day or two. So, Terrence, Grace. All right, Terrence, send me your mailing address. You want a wire waffle. Okay, so we will get them out to you. For those that don't know what a wire waffle is, there it is. Allows you to put up to 16 12 twos, 16 14 twos into a single cabinet all through one fitting, rather than violate the NEC with trying to do that in the NEC. Here you can actually do it and be compliant, that type of thing. All right, folks, that is going to be it for today. I appreciate all of you joining me. Sorry we did not have an episode yesterday, but we made it up today. Tomorrow we were going into part 2 of hazardous locations. And again, as I said, we're going to get into generalized location specifications, how to break it out. We're going to talk about the equipment that can go in each location. We're going to be talking about talk about protection techniques, things like dust ignition proof or intrinsically safe or non-incendive circuits, what that is. Look at some definitions, some of the techniques about how to wire them, where you're putting them, transitions, seal-offs, what explosion-proof equipment looks like right next to something that may be just a dust-tight enclosure, which would be something in a Class 2 location. We're going to be looking at the definitions of what incendive circuits are, non-incendive field wiring. We're going to be looking at non-incendive equipment applications, different types of luminaires that need to be installed or can be installed, or different types of fittings. We're going to discuss all that. And then we're going to actually dig deep into transitions in the wiring methods that you typically would see and things that you don't see in these types of locations. So again, as always, multi-part series. There's a lot of stuff to learn on Coffee Hour. We're really doing a 40,000 foot view, but at the end of the day, we really are looking at all these different types of things. And we'll be talking about all the different types of requirements with the different wiring methods and things like that, and seal-offs. We'll be talking about seal-offs and all those kinds of things. We will get into fuel dispensing facilities. Everybody always asks about the fuel dispenser. Where's the Class 1 Division 2? Where does that leave off? Where's the Class 1 Division 1? Where is that in a fuel dispensing system, like all the gas stations that you go to? We'll be covering all that in this series as well. So, all right, folks, till next time, stay safe, God bless, and we will catch you on the next edition of Coffee Hour. And take care. God bless. all of you here that stuck around, I am telling you right now, consensus is we're going to do the shout outs because I do appreciate all of you. I do appreciate all of you taking the time out of your day to join me. And since we do this every day, it makes sense. I don't have to do one video where we cram everything in one video. We can do it every day and join each other every day. And yeah, the lessons may be longer or shorter and more detailed and some less, but that's all what Coffee Hour is all about. So again, I got the response that I wanted to get from you folks, and that is y'all enjoy the interaction. And I do appreciate every one of you. So we're going to continue the shout outs, that type of thing. All right, folks, God bless. Thanks for joining. And yes, I do read your comments.